The spotlight was never meant for her. It was meant to expose her. "Hey, you. In the back." The girl in the black sweater. The famous singer's voice echoed through the packed auditorium, sharp and amused, like he'd already decided how this would end. Hundreds of faces turned at once. Phones lifted instinctively. A few people laughed, unsure if this was part of the show. She froze. The girl was 15. Slim. Dark-skinned. Hair pulled back too tight because she'd rushed that morning. She stood at the very end of the school choir, half hidden behind taller students, hoping the stage lights wouldn't reach her. Her name was Nia Thompson, and she had been doing everything she could to disappear. "I'm talking to you," the singer said again. "Come up here." Her heart slammed against her ribs. She looked to her choir teacher, who gave a small, uncertain nod. This was a once-in-a-lifetime event, after all. A charity concert. A famous singer. Cameras everywhere. Saying no didn't feel like an option. Nia stepped forward, her shoes squeaking slightly against the polished stage floor. Every step felt heavier than the last. She could feel the heat of the lights now, could feel the eyes. Hundreds in the theater, thousands watching the live stream, millions who would see the clips later. The singer smiled down at her. It wasn't a kind smile. "What's your name?" he asked into the microphone. "Nia," she said softly. "Speak up," he replied. "You're on a real stage now." "Nia," she repeated louder, her voice trembling despite her effort to steady it. The singer nodded, as if humoring her. "Nia, you're one of the background singers, right?" "Yes, sir." "Background," he repeated, dragging the word out. "That's interesting." A ripple of laughter passed through the audience. "You know," he continued, pacing slowly in front of her, "people always tell me everyone can sing these days. Everyone thinks they've got talent. Social media's full of it. But standing in the back of a choir doesn't make you a singer." Nia's hands curled into fists at her sides. "So," he said, stopping inches from her, "let's see if you're actually any good. I think the audience would love that." The crowd murmured. Some clapped hesitantly. Others shifted uncomfortably. Her stomach dropped. I wasn't prepared to sing solo," Nia said. Her voice barely made it past the microphone. "Oh, come on," the singer laughed. "Music is music. If you've got it, you've got it. Right." He turned to the band. "Cut the choir mics. Just piano." Her choir fell silent behind her, their faces pale. The piano keys sounded too loud in the sudden quiet. Nia felt small. Smaller than she ever had in her life. This wasn't encouragement. This wasn't mentorship. This was a test she hadn't agreed to take. What the audience didn't know, what the cameras didn't show, was that Nia had almost skipped rehearsal that day because she didn't even think she belonged here. She lived with her grandmother in a cramped apartment above a laundromat. Sirens were normal background noise. Silence felt strange. Music was the only thing that ever made sense to her, but it was something she did alone, quietly, late at night, with headphones on and the volume low so no one would complain. Her school choir director had discovered her by accident months earlier, overhearing her humming while cleaning the classroom after hours. Perfect pitch, the teacher had said in disbelief. A range that didn't make sense for someone so young. A voice that didn't show off, didn't beg for attention. It simply existed. But Nia didn't tell people she could sing. People like her weren't supposed to stand at the front. The singer leaned toward her, lowering his voice, though the mic still caught every word. "Don't be scared. This is how stars are made." Then quieter, just for her, with a smile that never reached his eyes, he added, "Or how they find out they don't have it." The piano intro began. A song everyone in the room knew. One of his biggest hits. The song famous for its impossible high notes near the end. Notes people praised him for in interviews. Notes critics said proved he was on another level. Nia swallowed. Her mouth was dry. Her mind screamed at her to stop this, to walk off, to apologize, to disappear back into the choir where she belonged. She sang the first line. Her voice came out soft, almost too soft, but it was clear. Clean. The room stilled slightly, though most people didn't notice yet. They were waiting for her to fail. The singer watched her closely, head tilted, arms crossed, as if assessing something fragile. She moved through the verse carefully, sticking close to the melody, not taking risks. This wasn't her song. This wasn't her stage. She knew that. Somewhere in the audience, a few whispers started. "She's not bad. Is she nervous? Is this part of the act?" Then the song began to climb. The singer smirked. This was the part he'd been waiting for. Nia felt it too. The rise in the melody, the place where the song usually broke people. Where voices cracked. Where singers reached and missed. Her chest tightened. She thought of her grandmother's voice that morning, reminding her to take her scarf, to stand up straight, to never let anyone decide her worth for her. She adjusted her breathing, just slightly. The next note came out stronger. The murmurs grew louder. The singer's smile faded a fraction. She wasn't showing off. She wasn't belting. She was just singing, effortlessly, like she always did in her room, like she did when no one was listening. The song moved closer to the famous note, the one that made the singer who he was, the one audiences paid to hear. The piano slowed. The room held its breath. The singer took a step back, giving her space. Giving her enough rope, he thought, to hang herself. Nia closed her eyes for half a second. Then she sang it. Not strained. Not sharp. Not forced. The note landed clean and true, ringing through the auditorium like something alive. A gasp cut through the silence. Nia didn't stop. She held the note, steady and pure, then let it fall exactly where it should. For a moment, no one reacted. The singer's face had gone still. Not angry. Not amused. Confused. Because that note, the one people thought belonged to him, had just come from a girl he'd pulled out of the shadows to mock. And she hadn't even reached yet for what she was truly capable of. The audience was still processing what they'd heard. And Nia, standing alone under the lights, had no idea that this was only the beginning of what that moment was about to unleash. For 3 full seconds, the auditorium stayed frozen. Then someone clapped. Just one person at first. Loud. Sharp. Almost accidental. Another followed. Then another. The sound spread unevenly, like rain hitting different parts of a roof. Confused applause. Surprised applause. The kind people give when they're not sure if they're allowed to react yet. Nia opened her eyes. She hadn't meant to hold the note that long. It had just happened. Muscle memory. Breath control she'd practiced without knowing the words for it. Years of singing softly, so no one would hear, had taught her how to keep a sound steady. She looked toward the singer. He wasn't clapping. He was staring at her, his jaw set tight, eyes narrowed just enough to show something had gone wrong. Well, he said finally, forcing a laugh into the microphone. Look at that. The band members exchanged glances. The pianist's hands hovered above the keys, unsure whether to continue. The applause grew louder now. People were leaning forward in their seats. Phones rose higher. This was no longer a joke segment. Something had shifted, and everyone could feel it. The singer stepped closer to Nia again, reclaiming the space. Pretty good, he said. For a choir kid. The compliment landed wrong. It wasn't meant to lift her. It was meant to shrink what had just happened. Nia nodded once, unsure what to do with her hands. Let's not get carried away, though, he added. That was one note. A few chuckles came from the crowd, but they were weaker this time. You know how many people can hit one note, he continued. Plenty. Doesn't make you special. Nia felt her face heat up. She hadn't planned to prove anything. She hadn't planned anything at all. But something inside her, something quiet that had been pushed down for a long time, didn't want to step back yet. The singer turned to the audience. You all want to hear the rest of the song, right? Cheers erupted. Relief, excitement, hunger for drama all mixed together. He turned back to her. Why don't we do this properly, he said. You sing the next part. Let's see if you can keep up. Keep up. The piano resumed, picking up from the bridge. Nia's throat tightened again. This wasn't what she'd agreed to. This wasn't even a competition she wanted. But walking away now felt different than it had a few minutes ago. Now, leaving would feel like surrender. She sang. The notes flowed more freely this time, confidence creeping in despite her fear. She could hear herself clearly now through the monitors. Her voice sounded bigger than she expected. Fuller, like it belonged out here. The audience reacted in real time. Heads nodding, eyes widening, people whispering each other's ears off. The singer joined in on the chorus, his voice familiar, polished, practiced. The crowd cheered louder for him out of habit. But something strange happened when their voices overlapped. Hers didn't disappear. It cut through. Not louder, just clearer. The singer noticed. He adjusted his volume, leaning harder into the mic. His voice rose, adding runs and flourishes, showing the technique that had made him famous. Nia followed without trying to outshine him. She stayed true to the melody, but when the harmony lifted, her voice lifted with it naturally, like she'd known where it was going all along. The choir behind them stood frozen, watching history happen from a few feet away. Then came the final section, the part no one sang live unless they were sure. The singer glanced at Nia. Just a quick look. A silent challenge. He went first. The note came out strong, but strained. A hair sharp. Most people wouldn't notice. Musicians would. Nia heard it. Her turn came immediately after. She hesitated for half a breath. Then she sang. The note soared. Not pushed. Not shouted. It bloomed. The difference was unmistakable. The audience didn't need musical training to feel it. A collective reaction rippled through the room. Gasps, hands flying to mouths, people standing without realizing they were standing. The singer's voice dropped out. He stopped singing entirely. For the first time since she'd stepped on stage, Nia was alone with the sound of her own voice filling the space. She finished the phrase and let the final note fade gently, exactly on pitch. Silence. Then the room exploded. A full standing ovation. Screams. Whistles. Phones shaking as people tried to capture what they'd just witnessed. Nia stood there, stunned, her ears ringing, her hands trembling. She looked toward the singer again. He wasn't smiling now. He clapped slowly, deliberately, his expression unreadable. Cameras zoomed in, catching the tightness around his eyes. The way his applause didn't quite match the energy of the room. "All right," he said into the mic, cutting through the noise. "All right." The crowd gradually quieted, though the excitement buzzed like electricity. "Well," he continued, clearing his throat, "you surprised us." Surprised us. As if she were a trick. "What did you say your name was again?" he asked. "Nia," she replied, stronger this time. "Nia," he repeated. "Where did you learn to sing like that?" She shrugged slightly. "I didn't. I just sing." A few people laughed, warmly this time. The singer nodded. "Just sings," he echoed. "Must be nice." Something about his tone shifted. Less playful. More guarded. "You know," he said, "raw talent is one thing. But this industry? It's about discipline. Training. Pressure." He leaned in closer. "And pressure breaks people." The implication hung in the air. Nia met his gaze. Her heart was still racing, but her voice, when she spoke, was steady. "Or it shows them who they are." The audience reacted immediately. A wave of "oh" rolled through the seats. The singer straightened. For a brief moment, it looked like he might say something sharp. Something cutting. Instead, he laughed. "Well played," he said. "Very well played." But the laugh didn't reach his eyes. Because somewhere deep down, beneath the ego and the applause and the carefully built image, he knew the truth. He hadn't planned for this. He hadn't planned to be outsung on his own stage. And he definitely hadn't planned for it to be by a girl he'd tried to turn into a punchline. What Nia didn't know yet was that this moment, this exchange, had already left the room. Clips were uploading. Comments were pouring in. Debates igniting. And the world outside that auditorium was about to decide what this moment meant. For her. And for him. By the time Nia walked off the stage, her legs barely felt like they belonged to her. The applause followed her like a wave, crashing against her back even as the stage lights dimmed. Someone from the production crew gently guided her toward the wings, speaking words she couldn't fully hear over the pounding in her ears. "You were amazing. Stay right here. Don't go anywhere." She nodded to everything, though nothing felt real. Behind the curtain, the air was cooler, quieter. The noise of the crowd became muffled, like it belonged to another world. Her choir teacher rushed toward her, eyes wide, hands trembling. "Nia," she whispered, gripping her shoulders. "Do you have any idea what you just did?" Nia shook her head. "I just sang." The teacher laughed, breathless, then pulled her into a hug so tight it almost knocked the air out of her lungs. On the other side of the stage, the singer was finishing his set alone now, professionalism carrying him through muscle memory. The audience still cheered, but it wasn't the same. Every high note he hit was now compared, whether he liked it or not. Backstage, phones were lighting up everywhere. Assistants whispered urgently. Managers frowned at screens. Someone replayed a shaky video clip, the sound distorted but unmistakable. "That note. Is this real? Who is she?" Within minutes, the moment had escaped the building. Online, the clip spread faster than anyone could control. A fan posted a 10-second video with the caption, "This girl just outsang him on his own song." Another uploaded a longer version. "He tried to embarrass her, and she destroyed the stage." Comments multiplied by the second. "She's 15? Why did he single her out like that? That wasn't confidence, that was cruelty. I've never heard that note sound so effortless." People slowed the video down, analyzing her posture, her breath, the calm in her face. Vocal coaches stitched reactions. Musicians paused the clip mid-note, pointing out details only professionals usually noticed. "That's not trained," one said in disbelief. "That's instinct." Memes appeared too. Side-by-side comparisons. Freeze frames of his strained expression versus her closed eyes, serene and steady. By the time the concert ended, the narrative had already shifted. Back in the dressing area, Nia sat quietly on a folding chair, hands clasped in her lap. Someone had handed her a bottle of water she hadn't opened. She stared at the label, reading the same word over and over. The famous singer entered the room. Conversations died instantly. He dismissed his team with a wave. "Give us a minute." The room emptied, leaving just the two of them and the faint hum of stage equipment. Up close, he seemed taller, older, tired in a way the spotlight usually hid. He studied her for a long moment. "You know," he said finally, "that wasn't how tonight was supposed to go." Nia didn't answer. "I was trying to have a moment," he continued. "Engage the crowd. Inspire some kids." She looked up at him then. "By making me scared?" He paused. "That's not what I meant. But that's what happened," she said quietly. Silence stretched between them. He exhaled through his nose. "You embarrassed me out there." "I didn't try to," Nia replied. "I just sang when you asked me to." The simplicity of it seemed to irritate him more than anger would have. "You realize people are going to talk," he said. "This industry doesn't forget moments like that." Nia swallowed. "Is that supposed to scare me?" His gaze flickered. "Just briefly. It's advice." She nodded slowly. "Then here's mine." He raised an eyebrow. "Next time," she said, voice steady, "don't call someone up if you don't want them to be themselves." For a split second, it looked like he might snap back. Instead, he laughed softly. Not amused. Almost impressed. "You've got guts," he said. "I'll give you that." He turned to leave, then stopped at the door. "Protect that voice. The world doesn't always deserve it." And then he was gone. Later that night, Nia lay awake in bed, staring at the cracked ceiling of her grandmother's apartment. The sounds of the city drifted in through the window. Sirens. Distant laughter. Life unchanged. Her phone buzzed non-stop on the table beside her. Messages from classmates she barely spoke to. Missed calls from numbers she didn't recognize. Notifications piling up faster than she could read them. Her grandmother knocked softly and peeked in. "You okay, baby?" she asked. Nia nodded. "I think so." Her grandmother smiled gently. "Good. Because tomorrow, everything's gonna feel different." She was right. By morning, the video had millions of views. News outlets picked it up. Morning shows debated whether the singer had crossed a line. Commentators praised Nia's grace under pressure. Others questioned her age, her background, her future. People argued about race, power, ego. Some defended the singer, saying it was just entertainment. Others called it a public humiliation that backfired. And at the center of it all was a girl who hadn't wanted the spotlight at all. At school, whispers followed her down the hallway. Teachers looked at her differently now. Students asked for selfies. Some were kind. Some were jealous. A few were suddenly interested in being her friend. Her choir director handed her a printed email that afternoon. A music academy. Full scholarship audition request. Then another. Then another. Each one felt heavier than the last. That night, alone again, Nia opened her phone and watched the clip herself for the first time. She watched the moment she stepped forward, shoulders tense. The way her hands shook. The way the room changed when she sang. She didn't see arrogance. She didn't see revenge. She saw a girl who finally hadn't apologized for her voice. And somewhere, deep inside her chest, something settled. Because the world had heard her now. And there was no going back to the shadows. The offers didn't slow down. They multiplied. By the end of the week, Nia's email inbox felt like a doorway she hadn't known existed had suddenly been kicked open. Talent scouts, vocal coaches, record label assistants using words like potential and once in a generation. Some messages were polished and professional. Others felt rushed, almost desperate, as if they were afraid someone else would get to her first. Her grandmother read a few of them over her shoulder, lips pressed together. "Everybody wants something," she said quietly. "That don't mean everybody deserves you." Nia nodded, though her mind was spinning too fast to fully agree or disagree. At school, the attention became overwhelming. A teacher asked her to sing at an assembly. The principal suggested a local news interview. Students she'd never spoken to suddenly acted like they'd known her forever. But not all eyes were friendly. In the locker room, she overheard whispers. "She thinks she's special now." It was just one clip. "They're hyping her up too much." One girl laughed and said, "Let's see her do it again." The words stung more than she expected. That night, Nia sat on the edge of her bed, humming softly, trying to ground herself. Singing had always been her safe place. Lately, It felt like something everyone wanted a piece of. Her phone buzzed. An unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. "Hello. Nia Thompson," a voice said. Smooth. Confident. "This is Marcus Hale." She froze. Marcus Hale was one of the most powerful music producers in the industry. The kind whose name appeared in award speeches more often than headlines. "Yes, sir," she said. "I saw the video," he continued. "Actually, I've watched it about 10 times. Her stomach tightened. "I'm putting together a private showcase in New York," he said. "Very small. Just a piano. A few people who matter. I'd like you to sing." The word matter echoed loudly. "I'm 15, Nia said carefully. There was a pause. "I'm aware. And my grandmother would be welcome," he said immediately. "This wouldn't be a contract. Just an introduction." Nia looked at her grandmother, who had been listening silently from the doorway. Her grandmother raised an eyebrow. "Ask him who else is going to be there." Nia repeated the question. Hale chuckled. "Smart woman." He listed names. Executives. Artists. People Nia had only ever seen on screens. When the call ended, the room felt too small. "You don't have to go," her grandmother said. "Talent don't expire." "I know," Nia replied. "But what if this is the only door?" Her grandmother walked over and sat beside her. "Baby," she said gently, "doors that are meant for you don't disappear just because you take a breath." The showcase happened 2 weeks later. A quiet room. No audience. No cheering. Just a piano, a microphone, and a semicircle of faces watching without expression. Nia sang 3 songs. Not the one from the video. Songs she loved. Songs that meant something to her. When she finished, no one clapped. They nodded. Took notes. Whispered to each other. She left feeling unsure whether she'd failed or passed some invisible test. The next day, headlines broke. The famous singer, the same one from the concert, had finally addressed the incident. In a televised interview, he leaned back in his chair and smiled. "People took that moment the wrong way," he said. "I was giving her an opportunity." The interviewer raised an eyebrow. "Some say you were mocking her." He laughed. "Mocking? Please. If anything, I helped her." Nobody knew her name before that night. The clip went viral immediately. So did the backlash. Comment sections exploded. "You don't get credit for humiliating someone. She succeeded despite you, not because of you. That wasn't mentorship. That was ego." Nia watched the interview in silence. For the first time since it all started, doubt crept in. What if he was right? What if the only reason anyone cared now was because he'd pointed a spotlight at her? That night, she sang again. Just for herself. No phone. No camera. Just the sound of her voice bouncing softly off the walls. And she remembered. She'd been singing long before him. Long before the stage. Long before anyone thought she was worth watching. A few days later, her choir teacher pulled her aside after rehearsal. "I want you to hear something," she said, pulling up a video on her tablet. It was raw footage from the concert. Unedited. Shot from the side of the stage. The moment before Nia sang the first high note. The famous singer leaning in, smiling, whispering something to her. The caption beneath the video read, "Watch his face when he realizes he messed up." The comments weren't about him anymore. They were about her composure, her courage, her restraint. She didn't try to destroy him. She just existed. That's what real power looks like. She won without attacking. Nia felt something loosen in her chest. Weeks passed. Offers turned into negotiations. Meetings turned into maybes. Slowly, carefully, her grandmother helped her choose who to trust. One evening, an envelope arrived in the mail. No return address. Just her name, handwritten. Inside was a short note. "You reminded me of why I started singing, before I forgot myself." No signature. Nia folded the paper carefully and tucked it into her drawer. She didn't need to know who it was from. Because by then, something had changed. She wasn't chasing validation anymore. She was choosing her path. And somewhere out there, people were still arguing about that night. About who won. About who lost. But Nia knew the truth. That night hadn't been about humiliation or revenge or viral fame. It had been the moment she stopped shrinking. And the world had felt the shift. The first time Nia stepped onto a stage again, it wasn't grand. No flashing lights. No screaming crowd. Just a small community theater, a piano, and an audience that had paid $5 for a seat. Her grandmother sat in the front row, hands folded, eyes calm. Nia took a breath. For the first time since that night, her hands didn't shake. She sang slowly, carefully, not to prove anything. Not to chase another moment that could be clipped and judged and replayed. She sang because it felt like home. When the last note faded, the applause came, not explosive, not desperate, but warm. Honest. And Nia smiled. Not because she'd impressed them, but because she hadn't been afraid. Months passed. The internet moved on, as it always does. New scandals replaced old ones. New faces rose, fell, disappeared. But Nia didn't vanish with the trend cycle. She worked quietly. Voice lessons with teachers who respected her boundaries. Music theory classes that challenged her. Long conversations with her grandmother about contracts, pressure, and the price of being visible. She learned to say no. No to rushed deals. No to interviews that wanted drama. No to people who spoke more about money than music. When she finally said yes, to a label, to a team, to a future, it was on her terms. The announcement was simple. A debut EP. No gimmicks. No forced image. Just her name. Critics were cautious at first. Can viral talent last? Is she more than a moment? Then the music dropped. And the questions stopped. Her voice didn't sound like it belonged to any trend. It didn't chase what was popular. It didn't shout to be heard. It carried. People described it the same way, again and again. Honest. Grounded. Unrushed. The song that resonated most wasn't the highest note. It wasn't the most complex melody. It was the quietest track on the record. A song about standing in the back of a room, believing you were invisible, and realizing, too late, that you never were. Listeners cried in their cars. Teenagers sent messages, saying they'd started singing again. Parents wrote letters thanking her for reminding their kids that confidence didn't have to be loud. As for the famous singer, his career didn't end. It didn't need to. But something about him changed. Interviews became more guarded. Jokes landed flatter. His performances were still polished, still professional. But people listened differently now. Every time he hit that note, there was comparison. Not because Nia had attacked him, but because she'd revealed something. Talent doesn't belong to status. Power doesn't guarantee greatness. And humility can't be faked. Years later, Nia stood backstage at a major awards show. This time, no one questioned why she was there. A young girl approached her, eyes wide, clutching a program to her chest. I sing too, the girl said shyly. But I'm scared. Nia knelt to her level. Me too, she said gently. I still get scared. The girl frowned. Then how do you do it? Nia smiled. I don't wait to feel brave. I sing anyway. That night, when Nia walked onto the stage, the applause was immediate. Not because of a viral clip. Not because of controversy. But because people trusted her voice. She looked out into the crowd, lights blurring into warmth, and for a brief moment, she remembered that first night. The fear. The silence. The note that changed everything. And she understood something she hadn't back then. That moment hadn't made her. It had revealed her. She sang her song. Not to compete. Not to conquer. Not to remind anyone of what she'd done. But to honor who she had always been. And somewhere, in the quiet spaces of the world, other voices rose a little higher. No longer waiting to be invited forward. Because they'd seen what happens when someone stops shrinking. And sings.